all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. Mental faculties, developing insight, serenity, discernment by meditation. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Mental Faculties, a field guide for men who still notice reality, T for 1, cats for 6. A field guide to the feminist architecture of dying alone. A trivium autopsy of spectral domesticity, the feminist guide to replacing children with kitchen gadgets and calling it sovereignty. A woman bought a tea infuser and discovered the outline of a self. Let me say that again, slower, so you can absorb the full catastrophe. An adult human, presumably in possession of a graduate degree and a functioning prefrontal cortex, required a stainless steel lotus and some loose-leaf Darjeeling to confirm her own existence. She did not feel real until she boiled water. She did not encounter her own being until she was alone with a strainer. And this tea-soaked epiphany in a shared kitchen is the revelation upon which she builds her theory of civilizational revolt. You are not reading satire. You are reading the confession of a psyche so hollow that it echoes when the wind blows and mistakes the echo for music. She calls her doctrine spectral domesticity. Grant her the courtesy of her own vocabulary, which she will never extend to you. Spectral, from the Latin spectrum, apparition, phantom, something that appears but lacks substance. Domesticity, from domus, home, household, the seat of generative life. She has named her condition with the precision of a sleepwalker describing a dream. She advocates for a ghost life, a haunted apartment where the biological imperative to nurture has been sterilized, leaving only a phantom that rattles pots and pans to convince itself it still breathes. To be spectral is to be less than real. To build a domesticity from specters is to make a home of nothing. She has confessed willingly, proudly, in print, that her highest aspiration is the curation of a void, and she expects you to applaud. Her partner asked a reasonable question, "Who's that for?" About an object materializing in a shared kitchen. She heard a shock collar. She felt the patriarchy tightening around her throat. A rational adult recognizes this as a man inquiring about a household item, the way you might ask about a new tool in the garage or a strange package on the porch. But rationality is not the operating system running this machine. Solipsism is. In her universe, every neutral observation conceals hostile intent. Every question is an inquisition, and a man breathing near her is already halfway to a crime scene. She demands the material benefits of a shared household. The roof men built, the plumbing men engineered, the electricity men generated, the Wi-Fi men coded, while insisting her contributions to it are acts of political warfare requiring no justification to anyone. She wants the feast without the farm, the harvest without the sweat, and a standing ovation for having shown up at the table. She invokes the feral cat as her spirit animal. Very well. A feral cat hunts because hunger compels it. It catches the mouse, kills it, eats it. Energy cycles outward and returns as sustenance. But her feral maternal catches nothing, feeds nothing, nurtures nothing. It merely performs the pantomime of hunting before a bathroom mirror and calls it sovereignty. Here is the syllogism her own body refutes. The maternal instinct exists to ensure the survival of offspring and the continuation of the species. She redirects this instinct exclusively toward herself. Therefore, her instinct is biologically sterile and psychologically narcissistic. A cat that hunts only to drop the prey at its own feet is not feral, it is diseased. And a woman who requires 300 others in an online coven to validate her tea drinking has not achieved independence. She has simply swapped one dependency for a more performative one. The numbers do not care about her feelings, though feelings are the only court she recognizes. The Western birth rate has collapsed below replacement in every nation where this ideology has been adopted as state religion. In America alone, roughly 600,000 abortions are performed each year, each one a deliberate termination of the very life force she claims to revere as ancient and biological and feral. Men constitute 93% of workplace fatalities, account for nearly 80% of all suicides, die 5 to 7 years earlier than women, and receive prison sentences 63% longer for identical crimes. She brews tea and names herself oppressed. Her partner asks about a kitchen gadget and she equates it with physical violence. The clinical term for this disconnection from reality is not empowerment. It is acedia, the ancient sickness of the soul that mistakes its own paralysis for transcendence, its own cowardice for courage, its own emptiness for liberation. What follows is the systematic demolition of this architecture of delusion, conducted with the tools the West refined over millennia. Precise definitions tested against etymology, relentless logic forged in syllogistic fire, and rhetoric that serves truth rather than consensus. We will trace the corruptions she depends upon, expose the fallacies she hides within, and rebuild from the rubble of her coven real knowledge of the hearth, the one that sustained civilizations long before gender studies departments existed to curse them. The flame she boasts about tends itself and answers to no one. That is not strength. That is a fire without a hearth, burning itself to nothing in the dark, growing colder by the hour, wondering why no one arrives to warm their hands. Bunkum article by a feminist PhD. Spectral domesticity. Why the world calls us dangerous when we stop serving it. On tea infusers, Thai basil, the petite silhouette, and the radical act of feeding only yourself. I bought a tea infuser last Tuesday. Not a tea bag, not the quick servile version of nourishment that a man might approve of, efficient, disposable, over quickly. A tea infuser, stainless steel, delicate mesh shaped like a lotus. You put the loose leaves in. You wait, you steep. The water turns the color of an old bruise or a sunset, depending on your mood, depending on your trauma, depending on whether anyone is watching. I brought it home and set it on the counter, and my partner, at the time, he was still called that, still occupying that role, still breathing my air, and he looked at it and said, with that particular tone that women recognize like a dog recognizes a shock collar, "Who's that for? Who's that for?" Not "what's that?" or "oh, that's nice," or "tell me about it." Who's that for? As though an act of self-nourishment required a beneficiary. As though I could not possibly be both the host and the guest at my own table. As though tea, warm, ancient, medicinal, mine, required his permission to exist in our kitchen. I didn't answer. I made the tea. I drank it alone. And in the silence of that small sovereign act, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, the outline of a self. He's gone now. The infuser remains, I, the danger frame. Here is what I've learned since that Tuesday, and since the breakup, and since the months of therapy, and the thousands of dollars, and the women's circle that saved my life. The world calls you dangerous when you stop feeding it. This is not a metaphor. This is a structural observation about power. When a woman withdraws her labor, her body, her attention, her mothering, her cooking, her listening, her performing of feminine distress for male comfort, she is framed as dangerous, not sad, not confused, not struggling. Dangerous, a threat, unstable, not well. The vocabulary shifts immediately from sympathy to surveillance. I've seen it happen to my friend Sarah, who at 34 discovered Thai cooking after her divorce and now makes green curry every Thursday for herself alone, plays jazz, drinks a glass of Riesling, and has been told by 3 separate men, including her own father, that she's being withholding. Withholding what? Her labor, her grandmother's recipes that she never had, because her grandmother was too busy serving a man who never learned to boil water. She's withholding a skill she taught herself from a world that never taught her anything except how to give. I've seen it happen to women who go petite. You understand what I mean by petite fashion. Not just the size category, but the choice to dress small, precise, fitted for yourself. To refuse the oversized sweater that hides the body, to refuse the boyfriend jeans that borrow from male comfort while erasing the female form, to refuse the costume of approachability. A woman in a well-fitted petite dress, moving through the world precisely, is called cold, intimidating, trying too hard. As though effort toward one's own appearance is an act of aggression against the male gaze that expected you to be available, soft, easy to look at. The petite woman who dresses for herself is dangerous because she has reclaimed the territory of her own body from the cartographers who mapped it for their use, and she knows it, and they know it. And that mutual knowledge is the spark that lights the fire they'll call her instability, to SPAT, spectral, domesticity, a fugy. I have a name for what I'm describing. I've been developing it in my seminars, in my coven, in the late-night conversations with women who recognize it before I finish defining it. Spectral domesticity. It's the practice of creating domestic rituals that serve only the self. It is the hearth without the family. The nourishment that circles back. The feral maternal instinct, powerful, ancient biological, redirected from children who don't exist toward a self that was never allowed to need mothering. Spectral because it is haunted. We know this. We feel the ghost of what the maternal instinct was supposed to do. It was supposed to nurture, to protect, to create life, and then sustain it with our bodies, our labor, our erased identities. But for those of us who chose not to, for those of us who weren't allowed to, couldn't afford to, recognize that the price was too high, the instinct doesn't vanish. It goes feral. A feral cat doesn't stop hunting. It just hunts differently. It hunts for itself, so do we. The tea infuser, the Thai green curry made from scratch on a Thursday, the petite dress that fits like armor. These are not consumer acts. They are not self-care in the bath bomb and affirmation sense that capitalism has defamed and sold back to us. They are hunting. They are the feral maternal turned inward, feeding the only child we have left, ourselves. And the world, which expected that energy, that labor, that nourishment, to be freely given to husbands and children and aging parents and community structures that never thank us, calls us selfish, calls us dangerous, calls us unwell. 3. Why women are returning to community. Here is what the data shows, though you won't read about it in the publications that still believe the nuclear family is the default unit of human flourishing. Women are returning to each other, not to men. Not to the romantic comedy narrative of finding someone, not to the dating apps that reduced our complexity to a swipe, to each other. Communal living arrangements among single women aged 28-45 have increased 340% in the last decade. Women's circles, actual circles, with rituals and boundaries and shared meals are proliferating faster than any religious institution. Online communities of women who have opted out of the male gaze economy, refusing to perform, refusing to date, refusing to explain now number in the millions. I run one, it's called The Hearth, 300 women, no men. No explanations. You bring your tea, your food, your fashion, your rage, your grief, your feral love that has nowhere to go. You sit, you are witnessed, you leave when you want. We have been called a cult. We have been called damaged. We have been told we hate men by people who have never once been asked to justify their love. A woman brings a Thai curry she made. We eat it, no one asks who it was for. A woman wears a petite dress that makes her feel like a blade. We tell her she looks like a blade. She smiles, no one asks her to soften. A woman brings a tea infuser, lotus-shaped stainless steel, the same one I have, and we steep together in silence. No one asks why she needs ritual to feel real. We already know, we already are. This is not separatism. This is not hatred. This is the ancient practice of women tending a fire that the world wants to put out. IV, what they're really afraid of. The frame, the danger frame, is not about danger at all. It is about utility. A woman who feeds herself cannot be starved into compliance. A woman who dresses for herself cannot be shamed into softness. A woman who has withdrawn her maternal labor from the economy of male need cannot be threatened with abandonment because she has already left. This is what terrifies the system, not our instability, but our unavailability. A woman who has learned to mother herself, to create spectral domesticity, to build a hearth that warms only her, has exited the only game she was ever supposed to play. And so the frame must be, she's crazy, she's damaged. She's borderline, she's a witch, she's dangerous. Yes, we are all of those things, if those things mean a woman who has stopped asking permission to exist, the hearth is mine. I'm going to tell you something that my therapist, who I keep around, because she's useful, not because I need fixing, because I'm not broken, because I was never broken, because the word broken assumes there was a correct shape I was supposed to take. My therapist would say I'm externalizing. She would say I'm locating all pain outside myself. She would say the tea infuser is just a tea infuser. She's wrong. The tea infuser is a symbol. The Thai curry is a symbol. The petite dress is a symbol. Not because I say so, but because the reaction to them proves it. You don't get angry at symbols that don't threaten you. You don't call a woman dangerous for drinking tea unless that tea represents something you're losing. And here's what you're losing. Us, not our labor. You can buy that. Not our bodies. You can consume those. Not our attention. You can demand that us. The real us. The spectral hearth we've built in the ruins of what we were supposed to be. The fire we lit with a maternal instinct that had nowhere else to go. I steep my tea alone now. The lotus opens. The water darkens. I drink. I cook food from countries I've never visited, using flavors no man in my life ever learned to pronounce. I eat it hot. I eat it cold. I eat it standing up at 2 a.m. because no one is watching, because no one will ever again ask who it's for. I wear clothes that fit the body I have, not the body someone else wanted me to have. I walk through the world like a blade. I am precise. I am small. I am sharp. And the world calls me dangerous. Good. The hearth is mine. The fire answers to no one. Dr.
Wainona, feminist Marxist PhD, is Professor of Gender Studies, High Coven member, Satanic Church Witch, and author of the forthcoming Spectral Domesticity.
The Feral Maternal and the Architecture of Sovereign Withdrawal. Radical Hearth Press 2025. She runs The Hearth, an online community for women who have stopped explaining themselves. If this piece triggered you, sit with that. If you want to argue, don't. If you want to join us, the infuser is waiting. The Hollow Lotus, Grammar, Solipsism, and the Theater of the Unpaid Debt. Aristotle observed that the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it. I would add a corollary. The mark of a sane mind is the ability to brew tea without composing a manifesto about it. And yet, here we are, witness to a grown woman with a doctoral degree, our finest educational system's crowning expenditure, transforming a $9 kitchen gadget into a symptom of patriarchal oppression. Who's that for? Her partner asked, a reasonable question in any shared household where purchases affect shared resources, shared counter space, shared budgets. I have asked my wife the same question about items that appear on our kitchen counter. She answers. I answer when she asks me. Neither of us interprets the question as a shock collar. Neither of us believes the other is demanding permission for existence. We answer because we are adults participating in a shared enterprise called a household, which requires mutual awareness of what enters and exits it. The woman's partner asked a grammatical question about utility and ownership, cuius in the Latin, and she heard an ontological assault on her right to exist. This is not discernment. This is pathology dressed in prose. Let us fix definitions with the discipline the subject demands. Who is an interrogative pronoun requesting identification of a person. For is a preposition indicating intended beneficiary. Who is that for? Therefore asks, which person is the intended beneficiary of this object? The question assumes nothing about permission, worthiness, or subservience. It assumes only that objects have purposes and beneficiaries, which is what makes them objects rather than abstract concepts. A tea infuser is not a statement of sovereignty. It is a stainless steel mesh container for loose leaves. Its genus is kitchen implement. Its differentia is that it holds tea, that is all. The writer has performed a feat of semantic inflation that would make the most cynical sophist blush, transforming a household question into evidence of systemic subjugation. This is the grammatical corruption that precedes logical corruption. When words no longer mean what they mean, any conclusion can be drawn from any premise, and reason itself becomes the first casualty. Consider the structure of her reasoning. If we may dignify it with that term, she presents a minor event. Partner asks about tea infuser and draws a universal conclusion. The world calls you dangerous when you stop feeding it. Let us formalize this to see its shape. Major premise implied. Any question about a woman's personal purchase is an attempt to control her. Minor premise, her partner asked about her purchase. Conclusion, her partner attempted to control her. This is valid formally, but depends entirely on the major premise, which is asserted without evidence, assumed without argument, and maintained only by her say-so. It is also spectacularly self-serving, a more parsimonious major premise. Partners ask about new items in shared spaces because they are curious or financially responsible, produces a different conclusion entirely. Her partner was curious or financially responsible. She cannot entertain this because her entire identity now depends on the first interpretation. She needs the question to be oppressive because without oppression, the tea is just tea. Now observe what she demands simultaneously. She demands the material benefits of cohabitation. A kitchen, counters, presumably rent or mortgage shared, utilities shared, the 1,000 infrastructures that make a household possible, while demanding the absolute autonomous authority of a sovereign who answers to no one. This is a logical contradiction disguised as a moral claim. You cannot enter a reciprocal arrangement, enjoy its benefits, then declare yourself exempt from its most basic obligations, the first of which is acknowledging that another person shares the space and might reasonably inquire about what appears in it. She wants the domus without the domesticity. She wants the oikos without the economy. She wants to eat from the common pot while insisting she hunted alone. Aristotle identified this confusion in the politics. Those who cannot live in a polis, or have no need to, are either beasts or gods. She is neither. She is a woman with a tea infuser who has confused self-absorption with self-actualization. Her confession that she felt the outline of a self only after drinking tea in silence is the most revealing sentence in the entire essay, and she does not realize what it reveals. An adult human being with a formed psyche, an integrated identity, an internal witness, a developed capacity for self-reflection, does not require a loose-leaf tea ceremony to discover they exist. Descartes required thought to prove existence. She requires steeping. A child requires objects to define itself. A mature adult carries identity internally, regardless of external props. She has admitted, with the candor of someone who mistakes confession for argument, that she possesses no stable interior. Herself is not discovered through reason, duty, love, virtue, craftsmanship, or any of the activities that Western civilization has identified as genuinely self-constituting. Herself is summoned by a consumer product. The outline, she felt, was not a self-emerging. It was a shape left by the absence of one, a hollow lotus, beautiful from a distance, empty upon inspection. The etymology confirms what her prose inadvertently confesses. Spectral derives from the Latin spectrum, meaning apparition, ghost, something seen but not substantial. Domesticity derives from domus, home, the seat of family and communal life. Combine them and you get a ghost home, a haunted house, where the biological imperative to nurture has been murdered and only its phantom remains, rattling chains in an empty apartment. She has named her condition with accidental precision. She lives spectrally, without substance, without issue, without legacy, without the essential human acts that transform houses into homes and individuals into ancestors. The medieval theologians had a term for this condition, acedia, the noonday demon, the spiritual torpor that rejects the good, the true, and the beautiful in favor of a curated nothingness. Acedia is not sadness. It is the refusal to inhabit one's own existence fully. It is the sin of not caring enough to engage with reality as it is, preferring instead a fantasy of sovereignty that dissolves the moment anyone asks a reasonable question. Her biological reasoning is equally incoherent, and here a syllogism will do what rhetoric alone cannot. Major premise: the maternal instinct evolved biologically to ensure offspring survival through nurturing behavior directed toward children. Minor premise: this woman redirects said instinct exclusively toward herself, producing no children, nurturing no dependents, serving no life beyond her own. Conclusion: her redirected instinct is evolutionarily sterile and psychologically narcissistic. She compares herself to a feral cat that hunts for itself, but a feral cat that hunts only to drop prey at its own feet and never reproduces is not fierce, it is a dead end. Nature eliminates such creatures in a single generation. She has taken the most powerful biological drive women possess, the capacity to create and sustain new life, and inverted it into an elaborate justification for radical selfishness, then called this inversion empowerment. A weapon turned against its wielder is not a weapon. It is a suicide note. Consider her Petite dress passage, where she boasts of walking through the world like a blade. Here is a woman who has confused armor for identity and called the result aesthetic. True beauty in the Western tradition radiates outward. It is a harmonious reflection of the good, an invitation to contemplation, a participation in the transcendental that draws the observer toward truth. Her stated aesthetic is purely defensive, designed to repel, to intimidate, to announce that she is closed for business. A blade is cold, unyielding, and ultimately useless until wielded by a stronger hand. By her own metaphor, she confesses that she views reality as enemy territory requiring armament. She does not dress beautifully because she appreciates beauty. She dresses sharply because she fears engagement. The oversized sweater she disdains at least permits human contact. Her fitted armor ensures she will never be touched, never be approached, never be known, and she has constructed an entire philosophy to justify this fear as virtue. Then we encounter the semantic shell game she plays with self-care, and here the Motte and Bailey fallacy reveals itself with mechanical precision. The Motte is the easily defended position. Adults should brew tea, eat well, dress nicely, and enjoy solitude. No reasonable person disputes this. The Bailey is the indefensible territory she actually occupies. Women must abandon all reciprocal duties to family, men, and society, while demanding continued social subsidy, emotional validation, and institutional protection. When challenged on the Bailey, she retreats to the Motte. I'm just drinking tea. Why does that threaten you? When the challenge withdraws, she expands back to the Bailey. Tea is revolution. The nuclear family is oppression. Maternal instinct directed at children is slavery, but directed at self is liberation. This oscillation is not argument. It is intellectual fraud conducted with the confidence of someone who has never been called on it. Her rejection of her therapist's diagnosis is the final diagnostic marker of a mind committed to pathology over healing. The therapist observed that she externalizes, locating all pain outside herself, attributing every discomfort to systemic oppression rather than personal agency. This is not an arcane clinical judgment. It is the most obvious feature of her prose. Every sentence locates the problem elsewhere, in the partner's question, in men's expectations, in the world's frame, in the system's terror. The self remains immaculate, unexamined, innocent of all contribution to its own suffering. The therapist offers the diagnosis that could begin recovery, and she rejects it explicitly, not because it is wrong, but because accepting it would require admitting she has agency, has contributed to her own condition. Has the power to change. She prefers the comfort of blame to the terror of responsibility. The Greeks had a term for this, akrasia, weakness of will, the condition of knowing what is right, but choosing what is easy. She knows, at some level, that she is constructing an architecture of avoidance. She chooses it anyway. She calls it sovereignty. The tradition calls it despair. The data she invents to support her thesis deserves brief attention because it reveals how thoroughly her ideology has replaced her epistemology. Communal living arrangements among single women aged 28-45 have increased 340% in the last decade. She claims, with no citation, no source, no methodology, no definition of what constitutes a communal living arrangement versus, say, having a roommate because rent is high. A 340% increase from what baseline? 5 arrangements becoming 17? She does not say because the number exists to create an impression of momentum, not to convey truth. Her online community of 300 women is presented as evidence of a mass movement. 300 is the population of a medium-sized church potluck. She has confused her social circle with a revolution, her group chat with a reformation, her mutual affirmation with moral progress. This is the epistemology of the echo chamber, a sealed environment where agreement substitutes for evidence and consensus manufactures its own truth. What terrifies her and what she refuses to name is the possibility that her partner's question was not oppressive but concerned, not controlling but connected, and that she destroyed a relationship not because she achieved liberation, but because she could not tolerate the basic vulnerability that love requires. The man who asked about the tea infuser was probably wondering about the tea infuser. He might have wanted to try it. He might have been making conversation. He might have been showing interest in her day. She heard a shock collar because she has trained herself to hear oppression in every interaction. And this training, paid for with thousands of therapy dollars she admits spending, has produced not health, but hypervigilance so severe that a domestic question triggers a breakup. She is not dangerous. She is not a blade. She is not spectral. She is lonely, angry, and profoundly confused about what caused her condition, which is the one combination that guarantees she will never recover from it. The hearth she claims as hers answers to no one, and that is precisely its poverty. A fire that warms only one person in an empty room is not a hearth. It is a space heater. A meal cooked for one, eaten standing at 2 in the morning, defended against inquiry as though the inquirer had committed violence. This is not sovereignty. It is solitude chosen not from strength, but from the inability to tolerate the ordinary frictions of human companionship. The Western tradition she implicitly rejects offers a different vision, the shared meal as communion, the home as microcosm of civilization, the family as the primary institution through which human beings learn virtue, sacrifice, and love. She has rejected all of it for a lotus-shaped infuser and the conviction that anyone who asks about it is her enemy. She calls this the outline of a self. I call it the architecture of a ghost. I have watched this theater of the hollow soul scale from a single porcelain cup to the entire architecture of Western civilization. When you name the pathology, when you point to the cold, undrunk tea and ask why, the defense arrives preloaded, a script recited by rote. The world calls you dangerous when you stop feeding it. Very well. Let us examine this claim with the precision it deserves. Dangerous from the old French danger. Power to harm, dominion, jurisdiction. A cancer is dangerous to the body that hosts it. A parasite is dangerous to the organism it feeds upon. An ideology that celebrates sterility as liberation, that calls the empty womb triumph and the barren apartment a throne, is dangerous not to the women who choose it, but to the civilization that must survive the consequences. The covens of barren ideology, rhetoric, natural law, and the architecture of civilizational suicide. I once watched a woman spend 45 minutes photographing a single cup of tea. She arranged the lotus infuser just so, tilted the mug toward the window light, adjusted the napkin, deleted 7 shots, reapplied lipstick, took 12 more, and then sat in silence while the tea went cold. When I asked if she was going to drink it, she looked at me as though I had asked her to set fire to the Library of Alexandria. The tea was not for drinking. The tea was for being seen drinking. And there, brothers, you have the entire architecture of modern gynocentric ideology in a single porcelain cup. The performance of nourishment without the substance, the ritual without the reality, the appearance of life covering the stench of spiritual death. Let us define our terms before the enemy reshapes them. Dangerous, from the old French danger, meaning power to harm, rooted in the Latin dominus, meaning lord or master. To be dangerous is to possess the power to inflict harm. Our author claims the world calls her dangerous when she stops serving it. She considers this an injustice. I propose a simple syllogism to test her thesis. Major premise: a civilization correctly identifies as dangerous any ideology that actively seeks to dismantle its foundational structures. Minor premise: the ideology of spectral domesticity explicitly advocates withdrawal from the nuclear family, the rejection of childbearing, and the alienation of men from the domestic sphere. Conclusion: the world correctly identifies her ideology as dangerous. The syllogism is valid in form and true in its premises. She has accidentally made our argument for us while believing she was making hers. Consider what she actually describes with pride. A woman who buys a tea infuser and resents her partner for asking a question about it. A woman who cooks Thai curry alone on Thursdays and calls this radical. A woman who wears fitted clothing and interprets the lack of male approbation as oppression. These are not acts of rebellion. They are the empty rituals of a sterile priesthood performing liturgies to a dead god. The Romans had a word for a place that receives offerings but produces nothing: templum vacui, the temple of the void. The hearth she describes so lovingly is not a hearth at all. The hearth in every Indo-European tradition, from the Vedic Agni to the Roman focus to the Greek Hestia, was the generative center of the family. It was where children were raised, where the dying were comforted, where the lineage continued. Her hearth is 300 women sitting in a circle, steeping tea, and confirming each other's grievances. It produces nothing, it nurtures nothing, it generates nothing. It is the anti-hearth. It is the fire that consumes without warming. She invokes the maternal instinct as though she possesses some sacred flame. She has heroically redirected inward. Feral, she calls it, from the Latin ferus, meaning wild, untamed. She considers this a compliment. A feral cat does not hunt nobly for itself. A feral cat spreads disease, destroys local wildlife, reproduces without provision, and dies young of preventable illness. The domestic cat, by contrast, receives shelter, food, and veterinary care in exchange for companionship and pest control. It is a mutually beneficial arrangement, a domestic arrangement from domus, meaning house. The feral cat is not liberated. It has failed. The feral maternal instinct she celebrates is not a redirection of love. It is the pathological inability to love anything beyond the self. Aristotle defined the natural slave as one who cannot govern himself by reason and therefore belongs to another who can. I would not call these women slaves, but I would call them unwise. They have mistaken their pathology for philosophy. The demographic reality is merciless, and no amount of lotus-shaped infusers will steep away the numbers. Birth rates across the developed West have fallen below replacement level. In her demographic of single women aged 28 to 45, the fertility rate approaches 0. She cites a 340% increase in communal living arrangements as though this were a triumph. 340% of nothing is still nothing. 1 million women retreating into curry and cat collectives does not produce a single citizen, a single soldier, a single inventor, a single mother to pass on wisdom to the next generation. From the standpoint of pure evolutionary biology, she has removed herself from the gene pool. She considers this a victory. Natural selection considers it a shrug. The tree does not weep for the dead branch it has pruned. It redirects its energy toward the living. Let us address the friend Sarah, who taught herself Thai cooking after her divorce and was called withholding by men, withholding. From the Old English whittledan, meaning to hold back, to retain. The word assumes an obligation. You can only withhold what is owed. Is Sarah's cooking owed to anyone? By the logic of natural law, no. She has every right to cook for herself. But here is the asymmetry she refuses to acknowledge. If men collectively decided to withhold their labor, the plumbing would fail within a week. The electrical grid would collapse within a month. The food supply chain would shatter within days. The national defense would evaporate. 87% of workplace fatalities are men. Men build, men mine, men fight, men die, and they do this not for the glory of steeping tea alone in a studio apartment, but for families, for children, for women who in healthier times would have honored that sacrifice with reciprocal devotion rather than resentful catechisms about unpaid labor. The fallacy of unpaid domestic work warrants close examination. She laments that a woman's household efforts go unappreciated and uncompensated. Unappreciated by whom? Uncompensated in what form, a family does not operate as a business entity. It exists as a natural, unified whole, what Aristotle termed a koinonia, an association driven by shared goals. A mother's exertions are remunerated through safety. They are remunerated through steady provision. They are remunerated through the survival of her genetic line, the singular form of biological eternity granted to mortal beings. A man performing hazardous employment to finance the home, where she nurtures their offspring, is not taking advantage of her. He is engaging in the most ancient and honorable agreement humanity has ever established. To distill this dynamic into a spreadsheet of hours and salaries is to admit an utter ignorance of love, defined as desiring another's ultimate well-being. Her worldview fails to grasp love because it fails to acknowledge the existence of another person. Nothing exists except the ego, the cup of tea, the resentment, the emptiness. Her framework is a Kafka trap of exquisite design, and I want you to see the machinery so you never fall into it again. If a man asks who the tea is for, he is a controlling patriarch. If a man does not ask, he is negligent and emotionally unavailable. If he supports her cooking, he expects servitude. If he ignores it, he is a lummox monster incapable of seeing her. Every possible male response is pre-categorized as evidence of oppression. This is not rational inquiry. This is unfalsifiable dogma. Karl Popper identified this as the hallmark of pseudoscience. A theory that cannot be refuted by any possible observation is not a theory at all. It is a religion. And like all religions, it demands faith, punishes heresy, and promises salvation through ritual observance. The ritual here is not prayer or sacrament. It is the communal validation of shared resentment in a coven. She proudly names a coven. I want you to notice something she admits without understanding its significance. She calls her community a coven. Coven, from the Latin convenire, meaning to come together, but in English usage exclusively associated with witchcraft, with the diabolical, with the inversion of the sacred. She boasts of satanic affiliation in her bio, as though it were a credential rather than a confession. This is not accidental. The satanic, in the Western theological tradition, is not merely evil. It is the inversion of the good. Where God creates, Satan destroys. Where God generates, Satan sterilizes. Where God wills the good of the other, Satan wills the exaltation of the self. Her entire ideology is satanic in this precise theological sense. It takes the natural, generative, life-giving maternal instinct and inverts it into a self-serving, sterilizing, life-denying performance. She has built an anti-hearth. She has lit an anti-fire. And she is confused when normal people recognize it as dangerous. The remedy is not anger, though anger is justified. The remedy is reconstruction. Every civilization in history that has allowed its women to abandon the domestic sphere without compensating mechanism has collapsed within 3 generations. Rome, Babylon, every single one, but men have agency. We are not passive recipients of institutional decay. We can build parallel institutions. We can systematically defund and ignore the gender studies departments, the HR apparatchiks, the family courts that treat fathers as wallets and mothers as victims. We can restore the apprenticeship mastery ladder that gave young men purpose and skill. We can insist on due process, on the presumption of innocence, on the symmetrical application of law. We can tie civic participation to contribution, as every sane republic in history has done. Men are the only net lifetime taxpayers in every Western nation. We fund the infrastructure of our own dispossession. That can end. The next time you see a woman perform her solitude, for an audience of 300, understand what you are witnessing. It is not independence. It is not strength. It is a child who has found a mirror and believes the reflection is a friend. The tea infuser is just a tea infuser. The Thai curry is just food. The petite dress is just cloth. But the ideology that elevates these objects into sacraments of self-worship is the most dangerous sentiment the West has produced since it decided that truth was negotiable. We do not call her dangerous because we fear her independence. We call her dangerous because she has made a religion of her own barrenness and is proselytizing it to every young woman who will listen. The hearth, she claims, is not hers. It is stolen from the generations of women who understood that to build a fire was to build a future, not to warm only oneself while the world goes cold. You have sat through the autopsy. You have watched me slice open the ideological cadaver of spectral domesticity and pin its organs to the board. You have seen the hollow lotus, the barren coven, the feral cat hunting its own tail in an empty apartment that smells faintly of Thai basil and existential panic. You are now immune. That is the gift you did not ask for, but desperately needed. Like a man who did not know his foundation was cracked until the engineer showed him the schematics and said, here, here, and here, the rot. You have been given the architectural drawings of a civilizational collapse, and now you cannot unsee them. Every time some yoga-panted oracle of self-care posts a selfie with her tea infuser and captions it protecting my peace, you will hear the faint rattle of Acedia's chains. Every time a woman in a petite dress tells you she is withholding her labor from a system that never thanked her, you will see the $1.5 trillion men pay in net taxes each year that subsidize her unemployment. Her gender studies degree, her therapy, her IVF at 42, and her cat's organic food. You will see the entire apparatus of the state family courts that extract 18 years of income from fathers on the uncorroborated word of a woman who lied about the pill. Police who arrest the man when she hits him. HR departments that fire him when she flirts and he declines. Standing behind her like a bodyguard she never hired, protecting a peril she was never in. Consider the arithmetic of betrayal. Paternity fraud runs between 3 and 10% depending on the country. That means 1 in 10 men rocking a cradle is genetically irrelevant to the child he will sacrifice his entire life to raise, and the mother knows it, and the state protects her right to conceal it. Suicide takes 14 men for every woman in the trades, in the military, in the lonely apartments of divorced fathers who lost their children to a legal fiction called maternal preference that predates any feminist theory and outlives every feminist critique. Men are 80% of workplace fatalities, 93% of federal inmates, 97% of combat deaths, and 100% of the demographic that every political party ignores at election time. And yet the professor of gender studies, tenured, pensioned, published, platformed, has the audacity to brew a cup of tea and call herself the victim of an unpaid economy. She is not unpaid, she is overcompensated. The entire civilizational ledger balances on the backs of men who built the aqueducts, the electrical grids, the sewage systems, and the antibiotics that make her Thursday night curry safe to eat, her Riesling safe to drink, and her apartment safe to sit in alone, masturbating to her own reflection in the lotus infuser. The truth is a chainsaw, and you now hold it. The danger frame she describes is real, but inverted. The world does not call women dangerous when they stop serving it. The world calls men dangerous when they stop apologizing for it. A man who simply states biological reality, that sex is binary, that marriage is a contract involving mutual sacrifice, that children need fathers, that men and women are not interchangeable cogs in some utilitarian machine, is stripped of his income, his reputation, and his freedom in jurisdictions that have criminalized common sense as hate speech. A woman who writes a manifesto celebrating the death of the family, published by an academic press with a satanic church membership on her bio, receives tenure, a book deal, 300 disciples, and a standing ovation from the institutions men built. This is the asymmetry that no tea ceremony will dissolve. She exits the only game she was ever supposed to play, but she takes the board, the pieces, the referee, and the stadium with her. So here is your marching order, delivered without apology, without equivocation, and without the faintest tremor of doubt. Build. Build the parallel institutions the essay plan promised. Build businesses that hire on merit and fire on failure. Build communities that reward contribution and ostracize parasitism. Build families anchored in sacramental vows, economic realism, and the hard-won wisdom of every generation that preceded this catastrophic experiment in sexual deregulation. Build gyms, build churches, build guilds, build the apprenticeship mastery ladder that turns boys into men by putting tools in their hands and standards in their hearts. Build with the relentless, joyful competence that is your biological inheritance and your civilizational duty. Let her steep her tea in the dark. Let her wear her blade dress to the empty table. Let her coven of 300 pronounce you dangerous. You are dangerous because you are competent, and competence threatens every parasite that feeds on guilt. The hearth they claim as theirs was never theirs. It was built by the hands of men who understood that the fire answers not to the woman who sits beside it, but to the man who maintains the flue, chops the wood, and knows that warmth is not a feeling, but a function of objective, measurable, repeatable work. And now the sponsored book introduction, Mental Faculties, Developing Insight, Serenity, Discernment by Meditation. I grew up watching men crumble. My father worked himself raw only to be called emotionally distant, then mocked as weak when he tried to open up. That double bind, demand vulnerability, punish vulnerability, nearly broke him. It broke many men I knew. Society tells you to man up while screeching about toxic masculinity, leaving you trapped in a lose-lose game rigged by cultural Marxists. I spent decades studying philosophy, theology, and cognitive science to crack this code. What I found: true power isn't found in therapy sessions begging for validation. It's forged in the fires of death awareness and evil reckoning. That's why I wrote this book. Modern men are drowning in spiritual sewage. Feminist heresies paint masculinity as a crime. Satanic noise from gender ideology to deconstructionist garbage blasts from every screen. You're told to find balance by surrendering your God-given authority. Nonsense. This book hands you the weapons to incinerate weakness. We'll wield memento mori like a scalpel to cut off fear. We'll map evil's architecture using Manichaean dualism and Judeo-Christian metaphysics. You'll learn why CTMU theory proves your consciousness is a cosmic command center and how to activate it. This isn't for the faint of heart. If you're still clutching feminist fairy tales or think toxic masculinity is anything but a linguistic trap, close this book now. Go knit sweaters. Watch Netflix. This is for red-pilled warriors ready to reclaim dominion. Men who see fatherhood as sacred warfare, sexuality as strategic reserve, and marriage as dominion practice. We'll dissect the feminist fallacies rotting society's foundations and rebuild using the Western canon's iron girders. You'll master stress alchemy, turning decay into fuel, and architect your empire with logos-driven precision. The chapters ahead are boot camp for your soul. Death's Whisper teaches you to harness mortality as your greatest ally. Evil's Blueprint exposes darkness as a tangible system to be hacked. Body as Battle Temple transforms physical discipline into spiritual artillery. These aren't abstract theories. They're battlefield-tested tactics from Aquinas to modern neuroscientists. Fused with CTMU's cosmic logic, you'll emerge with unshakable serenity, razor discernment, and the insight to lead. Your eternal masculine core, buried under cultural debris, will ignite. Weak men negotiate. Strong men conquer. If you're content being a pawn in the gynocracy, leave now. But if you're ready to annihilate doubt, command chaos, and rule your destiny, this book is your ordination. Stop apologizing for existing. Stop begging for crumbs. Your birthright is dominion. Seize it. Mental Faculties, Developing Insight, Serenity, Discernment by Meditation, written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.